Imagine looking up at the night sky and discovering that somewhere out there, another Earth exists. Not one, not two, but 7 worlds orbiting the same star. Worlds with oceans, worlds with atmospheres, worlds where life might already exist. For centuries, humanity believed the planets of our solar system were all we had. Then our telescopes became more powerful, and the universe revealed something extraordinary. 40 light-years from Earth, orbiting a tiny red star, scientists discovered a planetary system unlike anything we had ever seen before. 7 rocky worlds, roughly the size of Earth, packed so closely together that from the surface of one planet, neighboring worlds could appear larger than our moon does in Earth's sky. And here's the part that changed everything. Several of those planets orbit within the star's habitable zone, the region where temperatures could allow liquid water to exist, the same ingredient that made life possible on Earth. For the first time in human history, we weren't looking at a single potentially habitable world. We were looking at an entire family of them. And that raises a question that is both exciting and unsettling. If there are 7 Earth-like worlds in one system, what are the chances that one of them is already alive? This is TRAPPIST-1, the planetary system that made scientists rethink our place in the universe. To understand why this discovery is so important, we first need to meet the star at the center of it all. TRAPPIST-1 is not a giant star like our Sun. In fact, it's incredibly small. It's what astronomers call a red dwarf, one of the most common types of stars in the universe. TRAPPIST-1 contains only about 9% of the Sun's mass and shines with less than 1,000th of its brightness. If our Sun were replaced by TRAPPIST-1, Earth would be plunged into darkness and freezing temperatures almost instantly. But despite its small size, this star hosts one of the most remarkable planetary systems ever discovered. All 7 planets orbit extremely close to their star. So close, in fact, that the entire TRAPPIST-1 system could fit comfortably inside the orbit of Mercury. Imagine shrinking our solar system until all 8 planets fit inside the space between the Sun and Mercury. That's how compact TRAPPIST-1 is. And because the star is much cooler than the Sun, those planets don't burn up despite being so close. Instead, several of them receive amounts of energy surprisingly similar to what Earth receives from the Sun. But how did scientists discover 7 tiny worlds orbiting a faint star located 40 light-years away? The answer is one of the most impressive achievements in modern astronomy. Finding a planet around another star is incredibly difficult. The planets are too small, the stars are too bright, and the distances are almost unimaginable. So how did scientists find 7 worlds orbiting a faint star 40 light-years away? They didn't actually see the planets. Instead, they watched the star. Every time a planet passed in front of TRAPPIST-1, it blocked a tiny fraction of the star's light. For a brief moment, the star became slightly dimmer. Then it returned to normal. Then it happened again. and again. By carefully measuring these tiny drops in brightness, astronomers realized something extraordinary was happening. One planet wasn't passing in front of the star, several were. The first clues came from a small telescope in Chile, known as TRAPPIST. At first, scientists believed they had found only a few planets. But as more observations arrived from powerful observatories around the world, the picture became clearer. There weren't 2 planets, there weren't 3, there were 7. 7 rocky worlds orbiting the same tiny star. And when scientists calculated their sizes, they made an astonishing discovery. Most of them were remarkably similar to Earth. Not giant gas planets, not frozen giants, Earth-sized worlds. Suddenly, TRAPPIST-1 transformed from an interesting discovery into one of the most important planetary systems ever found. But if all 7 planets are roughly Earth-sized, what are these worlds actually like? At first glance, the planets of TRAPPIST-1 might seem similar. They're all rocky worlds. They're all roughly the size of Earth, and they all orbit the same tiny red star. But each one is a completely different world. The innermost planets orbit so close to TRAPPIST-1 that a year there lasts only a few Earth days. Imagine celebrating New Year's Day every week. Some of these worlds are likely scorched by intense heat, with surface conditions far too extreme for life as we know it. Others sit farther away, where temperatures become much colder. But the most interesting planets lie somewhere in between. Scientists have identified several worlds that orbit within what is known as the habitable zone, the region around a star where liquid water could potentially exist on a planet's surface. Among the most promising are TRAPPIST-1e, TRAPPIST-1f, and TRAPPIST-1g. These planets may receive amounts of energy similar to what Earth receives from the Sun. And because they are rocky worlds, they immediately became prime targets in the search for life beyond Earth. But life on these planets would experience something very strange. Most scientists believe the TRAPPIST-1 planets are tidally locked. That means one side of the planet permanently faces the star, while the other side remains in eternal darkness. Imagine living in a world where the sun never rises or never sets. One hemisphere locked in endless daylight, the other trapped in an endless night. Yet even under these unusual conditions, some regions could still be surprisingly habitable. And that's exactly why TRAPPIST-1 has captured the imagination of scientists around the world. Because among these 7 worlds, some may be far more Earth-like than we ever expected. Out of the 7 planets in the TRAPPIST-1 system, 3 worlds stand out above all the others: TRAPPIST-1e, TRAPPIST-1f, and TRAPPIST-1g. These planets orbit within the star's habitable zone, the region where temperatures may allow liquid water to exist. And wherever scientists find the possibility of liquid water, one question immediately follows. Could life exist there? On Earth, every known form of life depends on water. From the deepest oceans to the driest deserts, water is the one ingredient found everywhere life survives. That's why the discovery of potentially habitable planets around TRAPPIST-1 caused such excitement. For the first time, astronomers weren't looking at one promising world. They were looking at several, Some computer models suggest that TRAPPIST-1e may be the most Earth-like planet in the entire system. It could possess a rocky surface, moderate temperatures, and perhaps even oceans. Others may be colder, some may be covered by thick atmospheres, and some could be entirely different from anything found in our solar system. But there's a challenge. TRAPPIST-1 is a red dwarf star, and red dwarfs can be unpredictable. They often release powerful stellar flares capable of blasting nearby planets with intense radiation. Those eruptions could strip away atmospheres and make life far more difficult to survive. So scientists are faced with a fascinating mystery. Do these planets have stable atmospheres? Do they have oceans? Could life have found a way to adapt? Right now, nobody knows. But for the first time in history, humanity has identified multiple Earth-sized worlds where the answer could be yes. And that possibility changes everything. Discovering 7 Earth-sized worlds was only the beginning. The real challenge is figuring out what these planets are actually like. Do they have atmospheres? Do they have oceans? Could any of them truly support life? To answer those questions, scientists are turning to some of the most powerful instruments ever built. Observatories such as James Webb Space Telescope are already studying the TRAPPIST-1 system in extraordinary detail. By analyzing the tiny amounts of starlight passing through the planet's atmospheres, researchers hope to identify the chemical fingerprints of distant worlds. Water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, and perhaps one day, something even more extraordinary, a potential sign of life. For now, TRAPPIST-1 remains far beyond our reach. The system is located about 40 light-years from Earth. Even our fastest spacecraft would need tens of thousands of years to get there. But distance has never stopped human curiosity. Every new observation brings us one step closer to understanding these mysterious worlds. And perhaps the greatest discovery in human history is waiting among them. Because somewhere around that tiny red star, one of those planets may already have what Earth has. An atmosphere, oceans, maybe even life. TRAPPIST. One doesn't tell us whether we're alone in the universe, but it does tell us something equally important. Earth may not be as unique as we once believed, and that possibility changes everything.